May we? May we take your picture?
Oh, yeah. Wala ati ko ay buka just to the middle. So it's one of them. Stand together.
You know, they're to the front. They're to the sun. They should be on the other side.
The other way?
Yeah.
The other way.
I'm sorry.
Come together, sweetheart. Stand up.
Can I get in that?
Yes.
Beautiful.
I want her to sit.
Hurry up, you can't hold it.
We can hold it. Just sit.
Very good.
Right. Maybe I can get one. Thank you. Oh, please, one Can I come back?
Come on, one more.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Arno.
This side, Anna.
Why don't you go over there?
Huh?
Look so much like him.
I think they're tired.
Very nice.
Oh, okay. Huh? You want to get me in the picture? Me? Cheese. Oh, this way. People, beautiful. Why don't you get over there, Brian? Let me get a picture with you and me. Go over there with him.
Yeah, it's best to get. Let's try to get behind.
Yeah.
Two. Okay.
You can stay there as long as you like.
going to move.
Yeah, we talked to the director and said you are allowed to take photos, but with the minimum of flashes on one object. That means
There will be no
photo.
flash.
Yes.
And make it.
And now we are
Can I
going
have
to
your
start-
attention? Come here, please.
Yeah, Omar.
And I have your attention, please.
Come on, let's go.
The director is giving us a variance, and we must stick to this. You can select an object in there, you can take pictures. A minimum of flash. Suppose we don't use flash at all.
Yeah.
And you can take all the pictures you can. Set.
Yeah, Mahmoud. The museum has been built in 1970 and it opened, the inauguration has been taken place in 1970. But it was built, start building from 1964. All this, now we are in the garden of the museum. The garden is, in the garden is constructed the temples which had been brought from the northern Sudan, from Bohen, from Semna East, Semna West. These are Sudanese temples built in the Egyptian style during the times of the Middle New Kingdom, and they are proposed to be on the same natural place, just like where they were at that time in the Nubian land. This is supposed to be the Nile. This stream or small stream supposed to represent the Nile, starting from the northern part. If you suppose that this is the northern part, the far north part, these columns are representing the Christian period from Faras, a place which is adjacent to the Egyptian border. And after that, we will find the Aksha temple. Only this part is the best part is preserved. The southern wall, which bears the names of kings and lands which had been conquered by Thutmose III. And over there we have Bohen Museum, Bohen Temple, which had been built also in the New Kingdom times by Hatshepsut, and her successor enlarged it, Thutmose III. So we just take our direction this way, and then at last we come back to the shore.
Come here a little bit.
Of course, the original temple now is under the water. Only this part is preserved, and they brought it here. We see here the king is dedicating the temple to the god Ammon, and this is the southern wall of it, the best preserved. And this cartouche bears the names of lands which had been conquered by Thutmose.
Which temple is this, Master?
This is the temple of Aksha.
The god is Ammon. Who's the pharaoh?
That one.
That's which pharaoh?
Pardon?
What's the pharaoh's name?
The king?
Yeah.
The king is Thutmose III.
Thutmose the third?
Yeah.
Okay. And the god is Ammon.
Yes.
Third, and Ammon because of the plume. The name Thutmose III in the cartouche, and the god, you can tell who it is because of the plume hat. It's the only god that you will see with the plume hat. That's Amun, A-M-U-N. The pharaoh appearing and the person of Amun is showing with the royal discus, giving respect to Amun. Amun is carrying, you notice in the was, the scepter. Okay?
The scepter.
Yeah. However,
The god I know the pharaoh. I'll admit that's part of it. That's part of it.
fifth time you're going to go up there and read it.
You're going to fail him.
None of his wife was not really talking to his wife anymore.
Yes. And this one is the biggest temple in Lower Nubia. Has been built by Hatshepsut. And yes, it's written here. And her successor, Thutmose III, enlarged it. The protection has been built by Professor Hinkel from DDR or GDR, who is the engineer of the museum, working for the Antiquities Services since 1961. He is the engineer of this whole garden. It's here we see the king, Thutmose, on the gate, as if he is welcoming the worshippers to the temple. This part, which has been built by him, generally the reliefs bear worshipping the king is giving respect to various gods. For example, here the king is Horus, the god Horus, as we see him here in this place, and all the cartouches bear his name. They are also in that painting, which is still seen. Also there with Ammon, the king on the red color, and the god in that unseen color. It's well known that when he came after Hatshepsut, he took her name from all the temples and all the buildings which she has done before him, as if there is something between them, and he wanted to lash her name away from the history. But anyhow, people knows and the scholars knows that Hatshepsut is the one who built this temple. It's a typical Egyptian temple, but in the smallest size, not like those great temples in Egypt. As you see, the colors and everything is quite clear.
How far from here was the actual site of the temple? Is this the actual site of it?
Well, the actual site is the furthest point on the Sudanese northern border.
How do they make the colors? Very juicy?
Well, they prepared, as we know, that the Egyptians prepared the colors from natural sources. Yes.
Make a suggestion. Wait till they all come around so they can get the benefit. It's only the front line to hear you. Come in, please, so everyone can hear as much as possible.
Well, now you can have a look around the rooms of the temple itself, which is divided to 1, 2, and 3, and the upper part or the outer part is the holiest place, the holy of holiest. Yes.
Not in here.
Here we see the king. Fantastic that you have the whole scene exactly. The king taught Moses, and standing in front of Horus, who is the god whom they dedicated the temple to him.
Now, I really want to take a picture, but I don't know if my flash is. But aren't you really sort of warehousing them here until you can find a final place to put them?
See, I don't know.
This is not the final place.
Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
Children of the God. Of the God. Children of the God. Of that particular God, but we don't know who the God is because the head is God.
Hmm? Yeah, hold on.
No, I'm saying that I had the cord behind me. I was trying to get around things.
Oh. Yeah, I want to get one of those. I'm trying to get you whole view.
Anything particular in here, Dr. Green, you think?
You're running for.
You can take a picture. I'll take a picture with you then. Huh?
I take a picture with you.
Okay, I'll be happy. Can you still see it?
Yeah, I've seen it better now. Just because you in it.
I like that. He made my day.
Now, that's it. Now you know what I will say. She came back, but she was the wife of the king. Attention. They said that we didn't have any literature. We didn't have any history until Herodotus. This is history. This is the history of the king speaking of his travels. Here it is. Come on. They said that Herodotus was the first historian and that the ancients only wrote little jottings of what they did, but not a historical presentation. Here is a historical presentation, and this is the new kingdom. It's more. Herodotus is not until about 400 BC. This goes back. Thutmosis, the son of Hatshepsut. Thutmosis III, his father was Thutmosis I, Hatshepsut's father. Thutmosis II, her brother. Thutmosis III, her son. And here is from that time. Hatshepsut goes back to 1555, 1486. That's more than 1,000 years before Herodotus, and here is history, written as history, 1,000 years before Herodotus. Yeah, this is the travels of Thutmosis into the text. And that's another thing, you know, when we're using European statements about Egyptian thing, because one time, how are you going to tell what was Egypt, what was Nubian, what was Sudan, what was Ethiopia? Certain time the king here ruled, certain time the king in Ethiopia ruled, certain time the king in Egypt ruled. It's one continuous people. Him, you, me, all of us.
Yes. Here we have only some inscriptions from the ancient times. Of course, this is the oldest and the most important one. This one, because it shows the first written document between Egypt and Sudan. It's around 3,000 years before Jesus. And it's from the time of the first dynasty, which shows King Jer, who is one of the kings of this first dynasty, writing about the battle that happened between the Egyptian troops and the Nubian troops in somewhere in the Nubian land. This guy shows captured Nubian with the bow on his hands of course behind him, and this bow was the sign of the Nubians, because the Egyptians called the land of the bow. They were famous by using the bow and the arrows. So the land is bears has name from the using of the bow. Here we see a ship, a typical ship from the early dynastic Egyptian ship. If you concentrate, you can find something which could be a little bit similar to those boats which you have seen yesterday with this cover. I think it's a tradition which kept to be continuing in this Nile Valley. And we see here some corpses laying in the water. This rock brought from a place called Jebel Sheikh Suleiman in the northern Sudan. Only these two circles are not yet identified. They may, some scholars say they may telling about some lands or some tribes or some kingdoms which had been conquered by this king. Here, this is a letter inscription showing the ruler of Nubia, called Stow, with his wife behind him, and giving respect to the name of Ramesses II in the cartouche, only the name.
I have to get my pictures in too, you know. And let you only.
What do you call them? The sheep like?
There's something that he mentioned here is extremely significant. Number one, it gives a date that contradicts much of your writings. It gives a date here of a Sudan, a Nubia, that existed simultaneously with the first dynasty. Meaning that when they said that Egypt was the oldest civilization along the Nile, and that it existed by itself, here we have the first dynasty. That would mean if you take the different types of chronological writings, Bogosh, the Frenchman, the German, gave about 5000 BC for about the first dynasty. Marriott gave about 4000 and that. Budge, the Englishman, gave about 3100. That is what most people use. But if we use Manetho, the Egyptian, the African of Egypt, no different than this man, you, and so. You remember, Egyptian is only a political boundary. It has nothing to do with the people. The people are still African. Okay. It means that this society existed simultaneously with that society to the point where they had a war between each other, and the king is writing it down. Meaning that the king could have been from Sudan, he could have been from someplace else, just like the case of Ramesses II. There's a big argument as Ramesses was from the south. Ramesses married a woman from here, who was no different than himself. When you go and you'll see the picture and everything like that. And that is the thing, we have to do a re-examination of the way the European wrote our history, and write it the way we analyze our own history. Because here is the evidence that contradicts. You see the evidence of the history in there, you see the evidence of, not only this, a historical documentation between these two lands. Unfortunately, at a point when they're fighting, people don't always fight. Something happened, they're fighting, but here is the thing. So here you got extra proof of an origin along the Nile that came this way, not that way. Not from the north to the south, but from the south to the north.
Yeah. I want to ask something. Even before Ramesses, we have another king who is also from the first dynasty, called Hasechem,
Right.
who is still there is hesitating in his origin, if he is
Right.
a Nubian or he is
Or
Egyptian.
Egyptian.
But probably they say his mother is a Nubian.
All right. As it says, it's mother's baby and daddy's maybe. And this is the now. Symbolically.
Symbolically, that's what I mean.
In type of the location, they're trying to give you the location of it from the Nile.
Yeah. Yeah, you keep the mic in front. This one.
Here we have the last temples on the lower Nubian land, which called Semna West and Semna East. Those two temples were built on a very strategical place on the two hills around a very difficult topography, the topography of the place itself. This temple was built by Thutmose III also for the god of, for the spirit of Senusert the first, and he dedicated to the Nubian god called Didon. Well, you can see it's a small one, and it's different, completely different in type from those whom we have seen up there or even in Egypt. So you can just enter into the place.
Don't go in the hole you go. I don't know if this is it. Come out. He said he don't know if that's it. This is holy of holies. Or not.
That means at that time, even if there's a lot of practice more than in the earlier time. That means they, to some extent, even they are occupying the land, but also they have some respect to the local god.
That means you begin to get stability.
Yes, yes. Under any circumstance, the building of the temples means stability. Because before the temples, they built forts, yes, military forts, which is quite different.
Greek graffiti.
Greek graffiti.
Oh.
1870s.
Greek graffiti.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Up there.
Is that?
Yeah.
Gotta look here.
Greek letter
But
that
they show you when they talk about us, the graffiti and the substance, we have good features. That's my way back.
Yeah, I got to get a picture of that.
Right. What you're seeing, but you see the Nubian artistry. These are the Nubian sculptures and whatnot.
What is that cartoon?
Which shows that we went north.
That cartoon with the people?
Yes, of the Nubian god.
There's only one pronoun. There's only one pronoun that's in I.
That's a good one. How come you find that one also good? Unless it works in it.
Let me see if we can get some more kind of strong images around on the side.
Put their initials on here.
Oh, they sure did. They certainly did.
He's showing some graffiti.
Now here the ant that we're talking about, and everywhere you would see it, the ant will let us know that he is thinking of the middle world, the next world. And again, it comes down from the north to the south. Egypt was the last of the civilizations. However, the Nubians, the Ethiopians, the others, people of Tasseti, they've reached their zenith in Egypt. So that the Egyptian is a culmination of all these people reaching the height. You see? Because they're pyramids here, you know, just smaller ones. But they're pyramids nevertheless. The bigger ones there because they know more. As they went further south, they learn more. And then eventually they reach their zenith, the top.
Other one is on the other end. The frog is from the Meroitic times. That means about 400 BC. This one is brought from the place where we're supposed to go. That means Naga and Kosovarat, yes. And it was found near or surrounding Hafir. Hafir is a place where they collect water, the runoff water, and this water preserved there in these holes, which is called Hafir. It's a very large place for collecting the waters.
Reservoir?
And yeah,
A reservoir?
yes, and they think that the frog can give luck or can place the water so as not to finish till the next rain. Usually the Hafir is enough from the season to the next season. Yes, all along the year, that means. Yeah. At that place there is about three big Hafirs. And mind way, till now, Hafirs are used from the ancient times till now. Yes, yes, yes. People in the desert use this. Oh, they pretty.
I can wear it because it made me look dark.
Oh.
Was this put on before they brought this here?
Yes. The early ones. It was the time of the Greeks.
Yeah.
Well, this is the program temple for that one. It's also built by Southward and
Mike.
it's called Temne East, for it's on the eastern shore of the Nile. That's all what I want to say.
Right here's 1820.
Look at it, 1834.
They climbed up there to come to the beach.
Well, don't.
You take this, I want to get close up for it.
Configuration down up north. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, what is that double feather again? That's Ma'at, the feather of truth. Go away.
Yeah, gotta let this battle.
This place, originally, it was a mound, a normal mound of the land near the river, just the same like what is now. And in fact, it's a sort of trick. They built it in the ancient time also as a trick, because under it or beneath this tomb or mound, it is the tomb of the viceroy of the Nubian, of the king in Nubia, called Jahuti Hutub. And just they make it under this comb so as to make a trick or something like that to avoid the tomb from being disturbed or blundered. So we can just see from inside. So the engineer proposed this form so as to have a nice structure in the space.
So what's in this? That's it?
In there, supposed to be this sarcophagus.
Oh,
This is a burial chamber,
Oh.
and in the Egyptian burials, always they use two chambers or more than one chamber. In some rooms they put the offerings, and in some rooms they put the goods of the dead man or dead king, so as to be with him in his afterlife. In this case, we have only this chamber as the main one, in which they put the things, all the goods and offerings and many other things which the dead used in his life. And on the walls, now it's a little bit not clear, but it was affected by the weather again. It was very clear at that time, and it shows the life of this viceroy, Jahudi Hutukko. This is the main thing, that the Egyptians and the Nubians at that time used to show in the burials, and the burials gave us many ideas about the life at that time. They show everything, how they catch fishes, how they dance, how they deal with the life at that time. So we have these drawings, and here we have the burying chamber, in which there was they put the sarcophagus or the dead corpse.
When you go around and hang those things up. She found herself a comfortable seat. This one might have gleam in it. Because the sun is coming from behind me.
This is Tahaka. And he is mentioned in the Bible as he was second Kings and that's right. He certainly is. Something like that. He certainly is. 25th dynasty.
Is that his wife down at his feet?
It must be. It must be.
Boy, a woman really must have felt secure with these guys.
They took care of them. Remember what I said? They took care of them.
I mean, she must have really felt secure.
Dr. Ben is talking. Come on.
Dr. Ben is talking.
I'm thinking.
Because I've seen many of them.
I can't do anything.
With lens cap. Who is that?
Well, here we have the main hall. Here we have the main hall, and it started in a chronological way. That means from this side, on the left side, we have the prehistoric times and the early Stone Ages and the middle and the modern Stone Age. After that, we have the Northern culture, which is written in the alphabetic way, A and C group. And after that, we have Karma culture, and then we have the Middle Kingdom, and we have the New Kingdom, and then we go to the right side, we have the Nepatam period, and then Meravitic period, and then X group, and over there we have the Christian side, and we have a small show from the Islamic times. So if there is any question at the place, so please do.
You're moving too fast over here.
There are from Umdurman, the place where I show you yesterday. Remember?
Yeah.
That Thor Abanja.
What do they signify?
They are signifying axis.
Signify who?
Axis. These are
axis.
axes, yes. Yeah.
So these are stone tools.
Yes. All these are stone tools. You can see the development of making the tools itself. Just from here to here, you can see the differences. This is the oldest skull.
This is the oldest skull?
Yeah. From the upper Stone Age.
What year? When? How old is that?
Between 12 and 8,000.
I'm going to go down where Doc Ben is.
Equally known, or Asaru, in the south as in the north. And Osiris came from the south. It isn't something that just was started in Egypt. That gives you a good example of what we're trying to say. The wearing of the same headgear, here is the end of the headgear, which is called the sephron, or the Menkara here, headdress, meaning that it isn't the Menkara headdress. But remember that the Greeks wrote what they did as they arrived, and they came to Egypt first. So to them, everything that they see starts with Egypt. That's what they know. Just as they started the cataracts with the first, second, and third instead of the last. They didn't know that that was the last because they didn't know what the source of the Nile was. But if this here in particular gives you the story of Tehaka's battle against and he conquered Egypt, and then established his role as a. This is called a stela. This whole thing, this shape, is called a stela. So when you hear him talk of the stela and the stela is more than one stela. No. No, another thing is you walk. They're taking them out and building a one in Aswan. So you notice the crown. If the crown will have a lot of stuff, when you go to Cairo, will show you. You could have found precious stones. And the Nubian crown was always flat on the top. Snap on the crown, and then there was the plume out. That made a distinction, but they also had the crown. Now you could look at the statues and notice that they're giving you a slightly different image. that left no doubt who they were at all. And I just wanted to point out those things because those are the things that you are hearing, that contrary to what you're reading in your textbook in the United States, you come now and you see that there was no distinction in this exhibition of Osiris. If you went to Naga, you would have seen the same thing. Only one thing that you would have seen the queen, in this case, smiting the enemies. Because during the time of that temple, the queen was the charge. Camarada was the one that was in charge, and she's doing the same thing, no different than Hatshepsut was shown when she was the queen smiting her enemies.
Yes.
No difference. As a matter of fact, you would see the queen of Puanit, or Punt, Talia, visiting with Hatshepsut. And they give a different interpretation, of course, and you're going to see it at the tomb of Hatshepsut. You're going to see this, one of the panels, the temple of Hatshepsut at Dela Bir, the Valley of the King. You would see how the visit of the queen of Punt, her cousin, I want to re-emphasize that. Somalia is south of here, south of Ethiopia, and the cousin met the queen, and they also show the king. Of course, the Europeans said that she had elephantitis because she had a big steropedes. Well, we have some elephantitis in our house. Elena.
I knew I was going to pick that. But that's all right, darling. You loves it.
But yeah, it's good stuff. Look, we're not criticizing, we praise it. Because the Europeans didn't know what was good. Okay, we're moving on. And that is the kind of thing that is stated. What was beauty within this culture? The European came and tried to distinguish between what's supposed to be an Egyptian and what's supposed to be a Nubian when they were all the same thing. The statues were based upon the type of stone that they cut. If the statue was black 10-to-1, it's a black stone. If it was white 10-to-1, that had nothing to do with the color of the person and so forth. So I wanted you to see that it was one common people. No different, because the Osiris here is the Osiris there. Osiris in Ethiopia is the Osiris there was one common people. And at various times, one will be ruling at the end, another time it will be ruling here, another time they'll be ruling from Ethiopia. But it was one common people.
Here I want to draw attention to this period exactly in the Sudanese history. It is parallel to the Middle Kingdom in Egypt. It's called Karma culture from the place. There's a name from the place Karma, which is still a town in the northern Sudan. Here we have some differences from the Egyptian culture and from all other cultures in Africa or in the world. We have for the first time a type of the burying in the tradition of burying dead within tombs, and the corpus was laid on a bed, just like this one. This is one aspect. The second aspect is pottery. I want you to draw attention to the pottery itself. It is the best pottery which has ever produced in the Nile Valley. It's very thin, and the type of the way of firing it is completely different, very thin and very tough, very polished and very fine. Also, we have those inlays. This is ivory, and this is mine. Those things or those figures used to be a decoration on the bed, on the side of the bed, from inside. Yes, that's for Omar or something like that. This is animals, but decoration. And we consider it as the first Sudanese kingdom. This Karma. So please see the pottery.
The first dynastic?
No, the Middle Kingdom. Yes. Yes. Yes.
He's finishing. This is Taha.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not using much on it.
I should hold your mic from now on.
Got it? Yeah, I'm talking to him.
Yeah, you say you got it. This is the, like all the
Who's copy this is?
Is it over there? I don't know. It doesn't say who. It says who's the
Not in English. Not in English.
You good?
Oh. There's just so much of it.
You gotta probably go on the other side to see. You can't do that, you're all tangled up.
One thing. Yeah.
Hot and they say, yeah. I got one more shadow.
Them aspects of New Kingdom, and then the Napatan period. All the aspects of life and the aspects of this culture are the same, either in Egypt or in Sudan, in the Lower Nubia, of course. And now, after the Napatan period, we are going to move a little bit to the north, to the south, where we find the Meroitic culture, which is also a little bit different, and it has its own features. If we want to emphasize these things, Egypt also, or the culture in Egypt also, is an African culture. But when you go further, even in the same country, you will see the differences between the life here and the life in the south, for example. For these reasons, when the capital transferred from Napata to Marawi in the southern part of the Sudan, or now central part of the Sudan, we will find some new sort of life, way of thinking. Even the worshipping the gods has been changed from worshipping of Amun, the main god in Egypt and Lower Nubia. We will see Abadamak as a main god, the lion god, sometimes with 3 heads. Yes, and the 3 heads. Yes, the temples, the way of building, constructing the temples itself is changed. In the Middle Kingdom, in the New Kingdom, we have cultural influence in Lower Nubia. This cultural influence is getting less and less when we go further to the south. So we will see differences in many aspects, in sculpture, in pottery, mainly in pottery, I see, and in many other things. So we just go to that part of the Meroitic culture.
Which side? Which way you going?
Well, I have to change my film. Yeah, you can hold the mic, kiddo. Hold the mic.